The moment Chloe Davis got down on one knee and proposed to me in front of everyone, I heard the voice of her system. Congratulations, host. Target acquisition is imminent. Redeem all points now to initiate a complete vitality transfer between Jacob Wright and Ethan Cole. I froze. The hands I was raising to embrace her fell back to my sides. Chloe's real voice, laced with a tremor of excitement, whispered in my ear. Ethan's illness, there's finally a cure. But the look she gave me was filled with a strange, chilling pity. Once I take care of Jacob until he passes away, her inner voice continued, Ethan and I could finally be together without any worries. I stared at the glittering rings in a velvet box, my face locked in a smile. If the system and Chloe just disappeared, could I get my old life back? Amid the gasps and cheers of the crowd, Chloe Davis pulled the ring box from her purse. Her eyes fixed on mine held the same deep affection they'd had for the past 7 years, as if nothing had ever changed. The moment she opened the crimson box, a brilliant diamond caught the light, blinding me for a second. I had to admit, after 7 years together, Chloe knew me inside and out. The cut, the size, even the shape of the box. It was all exactly what I would have wanted. A genuine smile spread across my face, my chest swelling with a mix of sweetness and the feeling that years of struggle were finally paying off. But a split second later, a cold mechanical voice echoed in my mind. Congratulations, host. Target acquisition is imminent. Jacob Wright's affection level has reached 99%. Redeem all points now to execute a complete vitality transfer between Ethan Cole and Jacob Wright. The detached, emotionless voice was a bucket of ice water dumped over my head, snapping me into horrifying clarity. My hands, which had been moving to hug the woman I loved, twitched and retreated. My head spun. But then a familiar voice, Chloe's voice, echoed in my mind again. A private thought made public only to me. Ethan's illness. There's finally a cure. I stared at her, my heart seized by an invisible hand. The air sucked from my lungs. The giddy excitement that had filled me moments before turned to ice. Her eyes held that same pity. And then her inner voice and her spoken words merged into a terrifying harmony. You always said you wanted to marry me, she said aloud, her voice trembling beautifully. This time, let me ask Jacob, will you marry me? Once I take care of you until you pass away, Ethan and I can finally be together without any worries. The same voice, but it was like two different people speaking. My eyes darted instinctively toward the crowd. I remembered Ethan, her ex-boyfriend from years ago, who had been overseas for medical treatment. He had returned just a few days ago. There in the crowd stood Ethan Cole, pale and gaunt in a white puffer jacket. His haunted eyes looked as if they might spill over with tears at any moment. But it was the glint of something on his wrist that caught my attention. It was a watch, its bezel encrusted with diamonds. I knew that watch. I'd pointed it out once when Chloe and I were browsing in a high-end department store. She had smiled and said she would get it for me as a gift someday. Now, it was on another man's wrist. I pulled my gaze back to Chloe, who was still kneeling, waiting for my answer. My fists slowly clenched. The diamond in the box suddenly looked cheap, worthless. I let out a soft, hollow laugh. Just as I was about to speak, a scream cut through the room. Someone collapsed. Before I could even process it, Chloe, who had been looking at me with pleading eyes, shot up and plunged into the crowd. She knelt beside the unconscious Ethan, her face a mask of pure panic, and then helped him into her car. In the chaos, the ring box was knocked from her hand, spilling onto the floor. I knelt, picked up my ring, and slid it onto my finger. A perfect fit as I watched Chloe's car speed away. The system's voice droned in my head once more, target acquisition incomplete. Affection level remains at 99%. Full transfer is not possible. Host must continue efforts. I walked out of the hall with the dispersing crowd. Outside, the first snow of the year had begun to fall. I held out my palm, catching a single snowflake, and remembered a promise we'd made. Every year on the first snow, I'll have a new surprise for you. The snowflake melted into a drop of water in my hand. A tear I couldn't control slid down my cheek, hitting the cold pavement along with the snow. I pulled the ring off my finger and, without a second thought, tossed it into a nearby trash can before walking home alone under the swirling snow. My thoughts were a tangled mess. I checked my phone. Nothing from her, but a new message had just come in from my editor, Chris Miller. So, how'd it go? My best-selling author, you celebrating tonight? I'm a novelist. Maybe it was the magic of words, or maybe just a genuine passion, but I loved my job. I'd gone from writing as a side hustle to a full-time career, and I'd managed to publish a few popular books. Chris had been with me from the very beginning. He was one of the few people I trusted with things about my personal life. That included telling him that Chloe was planning to propose tonight. Honestly, Chloe wasn't great at hiding her surprises. I noticed all the little signs. When she'd asked me out for tonight, I had a pretty good idea of what was coming. I used to think I'd figure it out because I was observant, because I paid attention to the details. Now, I wondered if she was just lazy or if the obvious clues were part of the trap, a way to make me feel clever, to make me fall even harder. And I did. I fell for it completely. I stared at the chat window, Chloe's mental whisper echoing in my ears, Ethan's illness. There's finally a cure. This proposal was never about me. It was a party for one, and I was the only guest. In that moment, Chloe probably wasn't thinking about me at all or our 7 years together. Her words were a dull knife, slowly, methodically carving away all my joy, all my hopes for the future. No, something happened. It took a while for Chris to reply, "You okay? Did you and your girlfriend get into a fight?" A bitter smile twisted my lips. Maybe it was the relief of having someone to talk to, but I just typed it all out. "Chris, do you believe in things like game systems in real life? My man, did you get hit on the head or have you been writing too much fantasy? What kind of out-of-left-field question is that?" I didn't reply. I tossed my phone aside and collapsed on my bed. The soft mattress enveloped me, a wave of exhaustion pulling me under. It's not possible, I told myself. There's no such thing as a system. No one would meticulously plan for 7 years or maybe even longer just to swap someone's health. And how could I hear it? "Jacob," I repeated a desperate mantra in my head. "You're just exhausted. Get some sleep. It'll all be better when you wake up." I met Chloe my freshman year of college. I had just arrived at Northwestern, buzzing with the excitement of getting into my dream school. And there she was. Our meeting was a total cliché. She was a volunteer for freshman orientation and was also the upperclassman chosen to give a speech at the welcome assembly. At first, I didn't think much of it. She helped me with my luggage and added me on WhatsApp, but we didn't exchange a single message for the first month of school. The crush of coursework made me forget she even existed. The next time I saw her was at a club mixer. She wasn't in my club, but she was the roommate and best friend of our club president. That night, I saw a different side of her. Maybe it was the drinks, but she opened up. She was bright, optimistic, loved life, loved to travel, and loved animals. She was a perfect match for the woman I had always dreamed of. After that night, we started talking more and more. I discovered we had an incredible number of shared interests. It was no surprise when we started dating. In the years after graduation, I went through a rough patch. I couldn't count the number of times I broke down, frustrated by my failure to find a stable job. The weight of real life was crushing me. But every time I came home, dragging my exhausted body through the door, she would be there, putting on her best face for me. Chloe would comfort me, understand my stress, and listen patiently to all my complaints. I grew to depend on her more and more. Then one of my novels suddenly took off online. I started thinking about quitting my day job to write full-time. She was the one who encouraged me. "If it's something you love," she'd said, "you have to go for it. Otherwise, you'll never get the chance again." I loved Chloe. I loved every single side of her she ever showed me. But now, I was discovering that everything she'd ever shown me might have been a carefully constructed performance. She wasn't my soulmate. She was just a very, very good liar. And I had been her fool. When I woke up, the sky was pitch black. I checked my phone. Dozens of missed calls and countless messages from Chloe. It was already 3 o'clock in the morning. I deleted the system notification and got up to find something to eat. Just then, the smart lock on the front door clicked open. We stood there staring at each other. The memories of the evening came rushing back. Chloe took in my disheveled hair and the lifeless look in my eyes. The exhaustion on her face was quickly masked by concern. "Jake, you didn't sleep well?" She took my hand, her voice dripping with apology. "Jake, I'm so sorry. Ethan just got back to the States. He doesn't have any friends here. He's not well. And I never imagined he would just collapse like that. Next time," she pleaded, "I promise I'll make it up to you with an even better proposal." "Okay." I silently pulled my hand away, my face a blank mask. Seeing my silence, Chloe seemed ready to apologize again, but her phone rang. She hesitated for a moment before answering. A weak male voice came from the other end. "Chloe, where did you go?" "I'm here at the hospital all alone. I think I'm having another episode." Chloe's brow furrowed, her voice tight with an anxiety she didn't try to hide. "Ethan, I'll be there in a minute. Just try to calm down. If you really feel sick, call a nurse. Can you stay on the phone? Chloe, I just want to hear your voice." She glanced at me, then said, "Okay." She quickly grabbed her coat from the sofa and pulled a few changes of clothes from the closet. Walking over to me, she covered the mouthpiece of her phone. "Jake, Ethan's not stable right now. He doesn't know anyone here. I'm going to stay with him for a few days. I'll be back a little while, and when I am, I'll give you a proposal even more incredible than this one." I studied the genuine panic on her face. It was real, more real than any expression she had ever shown me before. My voice was flat. My fingertips dug into my palms, the pain a sharp anchor. The angry questions and accusations I wanted to scream died on my lips, replaced by a single quiet sentence. "Chloe, let's break up." She stopped in her tracks, muting her phone. She turned and wrapped her arms around me. "Jake, don't say things you don't mean. Don't worry, there's nothing going on between me and Ethan. These past 7 years, I've been completely devoted to you. Can't you feel that?" I lowered my eyes as her inner dialogue with the system started up again in my head. System checked Jacob Wright's affection level for me. Still 99% host. Hearing the system's reply, Chloe was certain I was just throwing a tantrum. "Jake, stop it. Just stay home and wait for me. I'll be back." With that, she turned and walked out the door. The moment it clicked shut, I finally felt like I could breathe again. I could clearly feel that whatever I once had for her was gone. But the system still registered 99% affection. Chloe's system, it seemed, was broken. I lay on the bed, my mind a chaotic storm. As I tried to think, a headache began to throb behind my eyes. My thoughts drifted to Ethan. He and Chloe were childhood sweethearts. His health had always been poor, and the years his family sent him abroad for treatment hadn't stopped him from needing fistfuls of pills every day. I couldn't help but think about how my own health had been declining recently. The slightest cold breeze would leave me with a fever for days. In the last few months, right around the time Ethan came back to the country, my body had gotten progressively weaker. I'd been to the doctor countless times, but they could never find anything wrong. I rubbed my throbbing temples and grabbed my jacket. I had to go to the hospital. I drove to the hospital and checked in. The pain in my head was getting worse. As I walked toward the consultation room, holding my ticket number, a familiar voice stopped me in my tracks. My gaze shifted to a nearby hospital room. Ethan's face was deathly pale. Chloe was by his side, trying to soothe him. Ethan's voice was sharp, almost a shriek. "It hurts. My head hurts so much. Chloe, you said you could cure me. Chloe, you're all I have. You're not going to give up on me, are you?" Chloe's voice was a gentle murmur, but her words sent a chill down my spine that plunged me into an abyss. "Ethan, just hold on a little longer. I'm about to lock things down with Jacob. Once it's done, he'll be the one with brain cancer. Not you. Trust me, Ethan. You've seen what the system can do these past few months, haven't you? Your health is already so much better." I stood frozen outside the door, the paper ticket in my hand crumpled into a tight ball. I doubled over, a wave of nausea making me retch. I gasped for air, but it felt like every part of my body was screaming in pain. Chloe didn't just want Ethan to be healthy. She wanted me to die in his place. 7 years of meticulous deception, All for one thing, my life. I wiped a tear from the corner of my eye, forced myself to stand up straight, and walked away from that room one step at a time. I didn't need a doctor's diagnosis anymore. I already knew the result. I threw the crumpled paper into a trash can. A single thought crystallized in my throbbing head. If the system disappeared, could I go back to my old life? Could I have a healthy body again, free from this pain? Could I see the world with my own eyes again? I dragged my exhausted body home. Outside, the snow had started up again, falling so thick and fast I couldn't see a thing past my window. I started to pack. Chloe's system was broken. No matter how many times I told her we were through, she would just see it as me being difficult. So, the only option I had left was to cut her out of my life completely. As I was gathering my things, I found a photo album. It was full of pictures of us from our college years. A small yellowed piece of paper fluttered out from between the pages. I picked it up. It was my handwriting: "Travel the world with Chloe and fill this album with even more memories." I stared at the note for a long moment, then picked up a pen and drew a thick black line through Chloe's name. When I first started writing, it was a hard, thankless grind. Life only got a little easier when I went full-time, but it felt like time had eroded my original dreams. My first dream was to use my words to document the world as I saw it. That dream had nothing to do with Chloe. I could still make it happen without her. I dragged my suitcase to a hotel. Finding a new apartment would take time. For now, this would have to do. Chloe called a few times, but I rejected every one. Within a week, a friend helped me find a new place. He didn't ask many questions. He'd heard about what happened at the restaurant, how Chloe had left me for Ethan. I tried to get back to my old routine with one addition: regular checkups at the hospital. I knew what the outcome would eventually be, but seeing the all clear on the lab reports for now was a small temporary relief. Even if I had to find a way to escape Chloe and her system, I wasn't going to give up on saving myself. I was standing in a hospital corridor looking over my latest test results when the unnerving feeling of being watched made the hair on my neck stand up. I sighed and started to walk away faster. "Jake." Chloe grabbed my arm. I turned and looked at her, my face impassive. We hadn't seen each other in over a week. She looked haggard, her hair unkempt and dark circles under her eyes, clear signs she hadn't been sleeping well. The familiar system prompt sounded in my head as she mentally checked my affection level. I raised an eyebrow, unsurprised to hear the system report back the same faulty number: 99%. Chloe visibly relaxed. She stepped forward and hugged me, her strong perfume filling my senses. "Jake, why haven't you been answering my calls? And why did you move out?" I silently pushed her away, my gaze shifting to the person standing behind her. Ethan Cole looked like a ghost, his body so thin he seemed translucent. When he saw me, he swayed on his feet. Even though this was the first time we were formally meeting, I could see the undisguised hostility in his eyes. Chloe followed my gaze and immediately rushed to Ethan's side to steady him. "Why are you out of bed? Didn't I tell you to rest?" Ethan shot me a triumphant look and took Chloe's hand. "It's fine. I just wanted some fresh air. I just didn't expect to see Jake here." I watched them, my expression unchanged. Chloe seemed about to offer an explanation when she noticed the report in my hand. "Jake, are you sick?" she asked, a flicker of hesitation in her voice, but the panic in her eyes was unmistakable. I found the situation grimly amusing. I looked at Ethan, who was now sizing me up, and forced a smile. "Yeah, I haven't been feeling well lately. My head really hurts." And my words, a faint flush of color returned to Ethan's pale cheeks. Chloe froze for a second, then asked stiffly, "What did the results say?" I smiled and waved the report. "The doctor says I'm perfectly healthy." Chloe's expression was strange, but she pressed on. "Maybe you're just overworked. It's okay. Once I get through this busy period, I'll come take care of you. Stop being angry. Move back in, Jake. It'll be easier for me to look after you." Fighting back a wave of nausea, I looked at her coldly. "Chloe, I already told you we're over." She frowned, staring at me for a long moment before sighing. "Jake, can you please stop throwing a tantrum? I'm exhausted, too." Exhausted from what? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Is taking care of Ethan that tiring? Hearing his name, Ethan immediately jumped in, his voice soft and weak. No, that's not it, Jake. It's just I don't really know anyone else here. If you're suspicious of my relationship with Chloe, I'll tell her to stop taking care of me starting right now. As he spoke, his breathing became ragged and he slumped against Chloe's shoulder, fainting. Ethan! Chloe cried his name, her voice filled with panic as she immediately scooped him up to find a doctor. As she rushed off, she looked back at me. Jake, don't make me disappointed in you. Trust me, I will come back. I stood there rooted to the spot as the pain in my head intensified. It occurred to me then that the timing of my headaches might be linked to when Ethan was having his episodes. The pain became so severe I had to crouch down and clutch my head. A voice came from above. Are you okay? Breaking out in a cold sweat, I managed to look up. I forced the words out through gritted teeth. Help me. The next time I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. The headache was gone. I sat up and downed the glass of water on the nightstand. The door opened and a woman walked in. You're awake. I stared at her. Her voice was familiar. Seeing my blank expression, the woman let out a small laugh and sat down next to me. A minute ago, you were asking me to help you. The memories of passing out came back to me. I looked at the professionally dressed woman and smiled sheepishly. Sorry about that. Thank you for your help. The woman shook her head, glanced at her watch, and then pulled out a business card. Here's my card. If you need anything, feel free to contact me. As she was leaving, she turned and gave me a thoughtful look. The doctor said, your case is unusual. Your test results are all clear, but you're still experiencing symptoms like severe headaches. You should probably stay in the hospital for a few days for observation. I nodded and thanked her again as she left. I looked down at the business card. The clean blue and white design bore her name, Nicole Vance. The name was so familiar, but I couldn't place it. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Chris. Feeling any better lately? I knew what he was really asking. He wanted an update on my new book. I've still got some stuff to deal with over here. The new book might have to wait until next month. He replied with an OK emoji, and that was it. I put my phone down, my eyes returning to the business card. As I puzzled over it, a familiar frantic voice echoed from the hallway. Doctor, doctor. I frowned, got out of bed, and peered through the small window in my door. I saw Chloe frantically pulling a doctor down the hall toward the room right next to mine. I let out a bitter laugh. What a cruel coincidence. Even our hospital rooms were adjacent. I didn't make a sound. I just went back to my bed and tried to figure out my next move. It seemed Ethan's pain was being partially transferred to me, though he still had to endure most of it himself. And with Chloe's system on the fritz, my affection level was permanently stuck at 99%. Her mission would never succeed, but it would never fail either. Just trying to stay away from her wasn't a realistic long-term solution. Who knew what else her system was capable of? The noise from the next room was getting louder, making my head ache. I pulled the covers over my head and tried to sleep. Someone once told me that Chloe seemed too perfect, that she fit my idea of a perfect partner too well. And things that are too perfect usually aren't real. How did I argue back then? I'd said, in my eyes, Chloe is perfect. But in my dream, her perfect image was slowly consumed by darkness, swallowing me whole. I woke with a jolt, sitting bolt upright in bed. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. Moonlight streamed through the window, casting a silver glow on my blanket. The hospital was silent. I wiped the sweat from my brow and got out of bed, needing some air. A light was on in Ethan's room. It seemed he was still awake. As I got closer, I heard arguing. I held my breath and leaned in. Ethan's voice was borderline hysterical. Why is it still like this? Chloe, you promised me you would save me, but my condition is only getting worse. Why can't you just make your system give you the reward early? Chloe's voice was weary, tinged with anger. Ethan, I've told you if I redeem the reward early and then fail the mission, I'll be penalized. I'm doing my best, but I haven't been able to make any progress on a mission because I've been stuck here taking care of you." The room fell silent. Then Ethan's voice returned, small and wounded. "I'm sorry, Chloe. It's just the pain is so bad. But it wouldn't matter if you redeemed it early, right? You said yourself how much Jacob loves you." Chloe didn't answer, but I heard footsteps. I quickly ducked back into my room just as she left Ethan's room and walked down the hall. Ethan's furious roar echoed from his room. "Why? You say you love me. You should be willing to do anything for me. What am I going to do? What if I get really sick? I'll look different. What if Sophia doesn't love me anymore?" A memory clicked into place. I grabbed my phone and frantically scrolled through my contacts looking for my old college roommate. Alex Vance was my roommate at Northwestern. His family was wealthy, and he always looked out for me. He was sharp, and he saw people for who they were. He was the one who tried to warn me about Chloe. I opened my chat with Alex. Our last messages were from a few months ago, before Ethan had come back. After graduation, Alex had gone abroad for his master's, ending up in the same country as Ethan. Coincidentally, not long ago, he'd sent me a photo. It was of a man and a woman kissing. I zoomed in. The man was Ethan. Alex was a huge gossip, and since his social circle was massive, he always had the latest dirt. The woman was Sophia Serrano, a well-known figure in their circle from a family even wealthier than Alex's. When he sent me the picture, he told me that this guy had been chasing Sophia for a while and had lasted longer than any of her other boyfriends. I looked at the face in the photo, and a slow, cold smile spread across my lips. When Nicole Vance came to visit with a basket of fruit, I finally remembered why her name was so familiar. She was Alex's older sister. Alex had told me countless times how brilliant his sister was, how she was a prodigy running the family company at such a young age. "Miss Vance," I said, thanking her. "I appreciate you looking after me." Nicole raised an eyebrow, a silent question about how I knew who she was. I held up my phone and smiled. "It's a small world. Your brother and I happen to be roommates in college." Nicole just nodded. I pulled up the photo Alex had sent me and showed it to her, pointing at Ethan. "I was hoping you could do me a favor, Miss Vance. I need you to run a background check on this man." Nicole's dark, intelligent eyes met mine. Her gaze was so intense it made me sweat. I swallowed hard and pressed on. "I know that your company is looking to expand into the entertainment industry. You've recently invested a huge amount of money into a new TV series, but the showrunners were having trouble getting the original author of the novel to sign on as a screenwriter." And Nicole asked, a faint, captivating smile playing on her lips. I quickly pulled up my author dashboard on my phone. This novel was my first big break. "If you're willing to help me, I will join the show's writing team free of charge. What do you say, Miss Vance? Do we have a deal?" Nicole didn't hesitate. "Deal," she said. I breathed a sigh of relief as she left. That novel was a reflection of my past and my hopes for the future. I had been reluctant to join the writing team, not just because I wanted to start my next book, but because I was afraid of creative differences. I was scared my original vision would be warped. I figured it was better to just let it go. I never thought that decision would end up being my trump card. A week had passed since I'd last run into Chloe at the hospital. She was still relentlessly texting me every day, sharing little details of her life. In the past, I would have been touched by her desire to share everything with me. Now, her messages just felt hollow and fake. Nicole was fast. In just 2 days, she had a complete file on Ethan for me. After reading it, I sent a message to Alex asking him for a favor. When Chloe called me again, I didn't reject it. I answered. Her voice was filled with surprise and relief. "Jake, you finally answered. Can we please meet? I really miss—" I cut her off. "Chloe, we need to talk." I told her to meet me on the hospital roof. The cold wind whipped around me, but I couldn't feel it. I heard Chloe's confused voice behind me. When I turned around, I saw the shock on her face. "Jake, what? What happened to you?" I let out a cold laugh, looking down at my own frail body, hidden beneath a thin hospital gown. These last few days, I'd been enduring a pain that wasn't mine, and my body had withered away. No matter how many supplements Nicole brought me, I was just getting thinner. "I'm sick, Chloe," I said flatly. I looked down for a moment, and when I looked back up, my eyes were red. "Chloe, I've been in the room right next to Ethan's this whole time. I can see how much you love him. You know, every time the pain hits, the doctors can never find anything wrong with me. I think I might be dying." I gave her a devastatingly sad smile. "Chloe, I don't want to be a burden to you. Let's break up." Her expression shifted from disbelief to a deep, aching pity. I saw it all. Chloe's inner voice spoke again. "System, is there a way to do this that's less painful? I really don't want this." The cold mechanical voice gave its answer. "No." She rushed forward and threw her arms around me, her hands trembling. "No, Jake, you're not going to die. It's my fault. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Snow began to fall from the gray sky. I reached out and caught a single flake in my palm. I leaned in and whispered in her ear, "Chloe, do you remember? You said you'd have a surprise for me every time it snowed for the first time. So, what's this year's surprise? Because I haven't gotten it yet." After that day, Chloe started spending her days in my room taking care of me. She would only go to Ethan's room at night. More than once, I heard Ethan's hysterical screaming from next door. "Chloe, why weren't you with me this morning when my head was killing me?" When she came into my room looking utterly exhausted, I would just quietly offer her some cut fruit, listen to her frustrations, and ask if she was tired. Even she noticed the change. "Jake," she said one day, "you've really changed since you got sick. You're so much calmer." I didn't say anything. I just watched her. The truth was the type Chloe had always really liked was someone like Ethan, gentle and completely dependent on her. Too bad for her. I wasn't any of those things. The next time Chloe promised that we would plan a huge wedding as soon as I got better, Ethan burst into the room. He pointed a shaking finger at her, his pale face and the dark bruises under his eyes making him look terrifying. "Chloe, so this is why you haven't been with me. It hurts so much. You know that, right? You promised you would save me." Chloe's face darkened, her voice laced with impatience. "Ethan, I told you I will figure something out for your illness. Now go back to your room. If your head hurts, find a doctor. There's nothing I can do." I offered Ethan a small knowing smile, which was all it took to push him over the edge. He lunged at me, yanked me up from the bed, and punched me hard in the stomach. I grunted in pain, and Chloe immediately jumped between us, pulling Ethan away. She stared at Ethan, a cold fury radiating from her. "Ethan, have you had enough? Remember this. Jacob is my fiancé. You're just a friend. Now go back to your room." Chloe dragged Ethan out of my room and slammed the door shut. She leaned against it, letting out a long breath, and gave me an apologetic smile. And then I heard her inner voice. "Is it possible to cancel an exchange?" For the next few days, Ethan was much quieter. The hysteria was gone. He was more like the person I'd first seen. Chloe's thoughts of canceling the exchange quickly faded. I picked up a gift basket of supplements and walked out of my room, knocking on Ethan's door. Chloe's voice came from inside. "Come in." She looked surprised to see me, but she came over to help me. "Jake, what are you doing here?" I held up the basket and smiled. "I heard Ethan's headaches were bad again last night. I thought I'd bring him something." Ethan didn't say a word, just scoffed. Chloe helped me to a chair. The moment I sat down, Ethan started complaining about his head again. So, she went to get a doctor. Ethan picked up one of the supplement bottles and looked at it with disgust. "You know, Jake, Chloe is crazy about me." I didn't speak, just smiled at him. My expression seemed to needle him. He grabbed my collar, his thin frame surprisingly strong. "You should be dead, Jake. You should have been dead a long time ago." I laughed softly. "Why?" "Because I'm supposed to be your stand-in. You're the sacrificial lamb." Ethan let go of me, a flash of panic on his face. "What? What do you know?" I smoothed out my wrinkled collar. "Did you know?" Chloe was thinking about canceling the mission. Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. I stood up to leave. Behind me, Ethan started shouting. "What do you mean by that? Jake, finish what you're saying." I ignored him and kept walking. I heard his footsteps approaching quickly. Just as he reached me, I sidestepped. Ethan stumbled and fell to the floor. His face grew even paler as he clutched his head. "It hurts." Outside, I could hear Chloe and a doctor getting closer. I threw open the door and ran out, intentionally bumping into Chloe. I looked up at her, my eyes wide with fake terror. "Ethan, he's having another attack. His head started hurting and he just fell." Chloe rushed past me into the room with the doctor. Seeing Ethan unconscious on the floor, the doctor quickly helped Chloe lift him back onto the bed. Just as the doctor was leaving, another man stormed into the room. He looked at the unconscious Ethan and sneered. "So, this is where you've been hiding. You've made us look all over for you." Chloe frowned at the menacing man and stood protectively in front of Ethan's bed. "What do you want? This is a hospital room. Get out." The man squinted at Chloe. "Are you his new girlfriend? You look like you've got money. How about this? You pay off his debts and I'll leave you alone." Chloe was stunned. "What debts?" The man laughed. "What? He didn't tell you? He owes us 300 grand. With interest, it's closer to 500,000 now. So, are you going to pay for him, or do I have to wake him up and ask him myself?" I watched Chloe's frozen expression, finding the whole thing rather funny. I patted the man's shoulder. He turned to me. "Look, man, we're a little short right now. Can you give us a few days? How about we give you what we have on us for now?" The man nodded, accepting the offer. I nudged the still dazed Chloe, motioning for her to hand over her money. "Let's just get rid of him for now," I whispered. "We can ask Ethan about it when he wakes up." Under the man's watchful eye, Chloe handed over all the cash she had. I walked the man out of the room, then went back to mine and calmly started eating some fruit. The day after, Ethan woke up, and I could hear him and Chloe arguing. I put on my headphones and turned up the music. I didn't need to hear it to know what they were fighting about. The noise from the hallway grew louder. I took off my headphones and walked to the window. A flashy Maybach was parked downstairs. I raised an eyebrow. Alex worked fast. I opened my door and joined the crowd of onlookers that had gathered outside Ethan's room. Ethan's already pale face was now completely drained of color. Standing opposite him was his ex-girlfriend, Sophia Serrano. Chloe, quickly understanding the situation, walked up to Sophia. "So, you're the one who dumped Ethan, left him with a mountain of debt, and now you have the nerve to show up here dressed like that." I clicked my tongue. Ethan really had a talent for spinning tales, making up a story about being abandoned by a rich girl just to keep Chloe on the hook. Just as Chloe raised her hand to slap Sophia, Ethan shot out of bed and grabbed her arm. Chloe stopped. He pushed Chloe aside and looked at Sophia, his eyes red-rimmed, wanting to pull her into a hug. He wore the same look of deep affection he always had, but on his emaciated face, it just looked grotesque. The illness had ravaged him. He was nothing but skin and bones. "You missed me, didn't you, Sophia?" he asked, his voice filled with a desperate joy as he embraced her. "I knew it. I knew you wouldn't really break up with me. You were just angry with me." Sophia shoved him away, her eyes full of contempt. "What's this, Ethan? You rack up a massive gambling debt overseas, and now you're running around telling people it was my fault?" Jacob Wright's affection level is dropping. 90%, 80%, 0. Mission failed. Initiating penalty protocol. A scream erupted from the room next door. "It hurts. It hurts so much. Doctor, aren't you going to check on him?" I asked, still eating my fruit. "He is, after all, the man you were willing to sacrifice me for." Chloe stumbled backward and ran out of the room. I finished my snack, got out of bed, and walked to the door of Ethan's room. Doctors and nurses were rushing in and out. Ethan's hair was falling out in shocking clumps. The sight made Chloe collapse to the floor. A doctor stood in front of her, speaking urgently. "The patient's condition is deteriorating rapidly. We may need to move him to the ICU. Are you his next of kin?" Chloe just stared blankly at the now maniacal Ethan on the bed. He clearly saw her too and began to scream hysterically. "Why, Chloe? Didn't you say you would never give up on me? Why does everyone abandon me? Chloe, it hurts. I'm dying. I'm going to die." As he raved, his eyes landed on the fruit knife on the nightstand. His gaze shifted from Chloe to me, a sinister look on his face. "Jacob, you were supposed to be my substitute. Why should you get to live so comfortably? And you, Chloe, you broke your promise. You said you would cure me. Go to hell. I'm taking you both with me." Ethan lunged at me with a knife. But just as the tip was about to reach me, it swerved, turning toward Chloe. At that exact moment, I heard the system's voice one last time, followed by Chloe's terrified scream. Penalty protocol engaged. Life termination sequence initiated. 5-1. Chloe crumpled to the floor in a pool of blood, her eyes wide with disbelief. The hallway erupted in screams. Doctors and other visitors rushed forward to restrain Ethan. As he was dragged away, he stared at me with pure venom. "It should have been you, Jacob. It should have been you." Ethan was sent to a psychiatric facility. The next I heard of him, he had died from cancer. My life returned to normal. It was as if those 7 years had been nothing more than a long, terrible dream. I fulfilled my promise to Nicole and joined a writing team for the TV series. It was a surprisingly wonderful experience. The veteran screenwriters listened to my opinions and respected my vision. The show was a massive success. With the first paycheck from Nicole, I booked a trip around the world. As I traveled, I continued to work on my new book, and my new book gained a new, very devoted reader, Nicole. She pestered me for new chapters, even more than my editor, Chris. We would often discuss plot developments. When I finished the first leg of my trip, I decided to return to the States for a while. Alex was back, too, and he and Nicole picked me up from the airport. I used my savings to buy an apartment I loved. It wasn't big, but it was comfortable. It was mine. Another year, another first snow. I walked quickly down the street, a bag of snacks and drinks in my hand, heading for my apartment. When I opened the door, Nicole and Alex were already there waiting for me. "What took you so long?" Alex said, pulling me inside. "We've been waiting forever. Nicole's cooking tonight, so you're in for a treat. Her food is amazing." I raised an eyebrow. "Well, now I'm really looking forward to it." This year on the first snow, I was celebrating with a life that was quiet, warm, and peacefully mine.